You asked for it, so here it is. It's your LSU baseball season preview. Buckle up, Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. And thank you for watching every weekday on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network as well. We sincerely appreciate you for being there with us. So many of you have asked, Scone, when are you going to start talking about LSU baseball? Well, the day is today. This is going to be your comprehensive LSU baseball preview. We're going to give you the 10,000-foot flyover. We're going to handle this in three pieces. I'm going to give you a rotation. I'm going to give you bullpen. And then I'm going to give you the lineup. I'm going to tell you the names you need to know, the new names, the returning names, all that sort of stuff. So I got my full page of notes here. So let's get cranking. And let's start with the rotation. Look, let's be very clear about what this team is, okay? If you're an everydayer, you watch me or listen on any of my other platforms, you've heard me say this. This is going to be Jay Johnson's most talented team. I'm not saying it's going to be a team that wins the national championship, but it's his most talented team. 2023 had the top-level talent with Skeens and Cruz, Trey Morgan, Tommy White. You had a lot of program guys mixed in there as well. When you look at last year's team that won the national championship, that may go down as the least talented team to win a national championship in terms of guys that play Major League Baseball. You got outstanding performances from Cade Anderson, and then late in the season, and Anthony Ianson. Chase Shores finally came along by the end of the season. And then you just had some clutch performances throughout the year. Guys like Luis Hernandez was so critical for you. Veteran guys like Michael Braswell, who was great defensively, didn't let his struggles at the plate carry into the field. Of course, Derek Curiel, a freshman All-American. Stephen Milam continues to be outstanding. You know the drill. Jared Jones hit 22 homers. Like, you know the team, but you don't look and go, man, there's big leaguers all over the field. This is a team where you've got big leaguers all over the field. And incredible depth. So let's start with the rotation. There's three names that you need to know probably for opening weekend in the rotation. Casan Evans, Cooper Moore, William Schmidt. Now, as the Tigers have begun practice, one thing I'll tell you that might surprise you, and I'm going to tell you, don't be surprised if it happens. But don't be surprised if William Schmidt ends up being the Friday night guy in the season opening series. As of today, if I had to go to a ticket window in Vegas and bet who was going to start the season opener, I would tell you that it's Casan Evans. Casan Evans was absolutely outstanding during his freshman season, mostly in a bullpen role. He had a 2.05 ERA. His whip was 1.21. He was 5-1 as a win-loss record, but he only started 3 times. Of his 19 appearances, 16 were out of the bullpen. He was an awesome end-of-the-game type guy. We know his story. Casan Evans is the son of a high school coach. He's been around baseball. He was maybe more mature, ready for that moment as a freshman. William Schmidt was a guy that was a top 20 projected draft pick who passed on $3 million to come to LSU because, as Jay Johnson has said repeatedly, he wears purple and gold pajamas, right? Like, he's the quintessential kid from Baton Rouge who grew up always wanting to play at LSU, and he got the opportunity. The stuff is undeniable, but as a freshman, like Jay Johnson said this as well, as a freshman, William Schmidt was 7-0. He had a 4.73 ERA, but the problem with William Schmidt in his 32 and a third innings pitch was he walked 22. Now, he struck out 41. The command wasn't always there, and certainly he struggled at times in conference play. But remember, a year ago, we saw this with Cade Anderson. Cade Anderson just couldn't get guys out in conference play. From freshman to sophomore year, he went from guy who couldn't get SEC hitters out to an All-American, College World Series most outstanding player, third pick in the draft. William Schmidt, well, albeit from the right side, has better stuff and had a better freshman season than Cade Anderson did. I'm not telling you Schmidt's going to have that type of rise. I'm just telling you he had a better freshman season than Cade Anderson. Don't be surprised if you see this guy who's physically developed into his body more year to year becomes that guy. The question with Schmidt, how does he handle the bright lights? If he can handle the bright lights, he could very well end up being your Friday guy. With Casan Evans, in his most recent outings here in their scrimmages, he has gotten blasted by his teammates. But his teammates have seen him like 15 times since the fall. So, like, for example, Casan Evans' best pitch is his changeup. He throws it 40% of the time. Well, if they've seen it 15 times and they know it's coming and they're sitting changeup, they can hit it. So I'm not as concerned about Casan Evans not having as much success right now against his teammates, because I've seen him do it on the grandest stage, and I think he's going to be awesome, and he'll be a great part of this rotation. But again, don't be surprised if we get to 2 weeks from Friday in the season opener for LSU, and William Schmidt is taking the ball on that Friday. I think it's going to be Evans. I think it's going to be Evans. Don't be surprised if it's Schmidt. The other name that you need to know is Cooper Moore. So this is a guy Cooper Moore is transferring in from Kansas, and he's an average arm, but he has great pitchability. He's 88 to 93, probably going to sit 91, 92 mostly. He's had 44 career appearances. He was the number 6 pitcher in the D1 baseball transfer portal rankings among pitchers. Made 14 starts in 2 seasons at Kansas, an ERA sub 4, 116 strikeouts to just 32 walks. Again, you're talking about a guy that has played a ton of college baseball and is a strike thrower and has great pitchability. I think Cooper Moore is your Saturday guy. He is going to be an innings eater on the weekend. If I had to pick it how it would go right now, I think it would be Evans, Moore, Schmidt. I think that's how it would go Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Don't be surprised, however, if you see William Schmidt push to be your Friday night guy. I also think it's interesting how you could end up seeing some other guys potentially factor into that rotation. And the one thing really worth watching, I would tell you, is can they get a lefty in that rotation? So when we're talking about Evans, Moore, and Schmidt, those are 3 righties. If you could work a lefty into the rotation, it would most likely be Cooper Williams. Now, Cooper Williams at the end of the season was really good as a lefty out of the bullpen, and that would give you the left-handed option. But Cooper Williams, Maverick Rizzi have a lot of the same, who we'll talk about in just a second, have a lot of the same issues that Chase Shores did. And when you're talking about someone that's 6'9", 6'10", when you have all of those long levers, it takes a while. Ben McDonald has talked about this, a guy that was 6'10", pitcher. Randy Johnson has talked about this. When you uncoil and you're that big, repeating the motion consistently, which is the key to pitching, is the repetitive motion and the consistency, it's difficult to control all those levers. But once you figure it out, it looks like Chase Shores did at the end of the year when he was the most dominant pitcher in college baseball at the end of the season. That's what Cooper Williams and Maverick Rizzi also kind of have to work on. If Cooper Williams can develop that consistency, he is a starter. I mean, he will be a starter in his career, and he will be a big leaguer. I mean, throwing 98 to 100 from the left side, it's Chase Shores. I mean, it's who he is from the left side. He's got to develop consistency. So if you're looking for a left-hander that could potentially work his way into that rotation, Williams would be the other. So that's how the rotation probably looks. I think Zac Cowan could factor in. Gavin Guidry's back. Let me pick up with those guys and talk about how they might factor into the rotation and also where they likely factor into the bullpen. We'll do that here as we continue. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. The WNBA has released its 2026 schedule featuring a 44-game regular season beginning on Friday, May 8th. The league's historic 30th season includes expansion teams Portland Fire and the Toronto Tempo, with opening weekend highlights such as Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever hosting Paige Beckers and the Dallas Wings, and a rematch of the 2025 finals between the Aces and the Mercury. In college hoops, South Carolina handed Vanderbilt its first loss of the season with a dominant 103-74 win. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Okay, I want to get into the bullpen here in just a quick second as we continue on this season preview. Let me thank you, though, once again, as always, for making Locked On LSU your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you have not already, please go check out our new Everydayer Club. Gives you access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On LSU, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the podcast apps, and an invite to a members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server that includes group chat just for listeners of this show. So please tap the link in the show notes if you want to learn more. So we talked about the rotation, Evans, Moore, Schmidt, who you need to know. Cooper Williams, a lefty, likely factoring in via the bullpen, but could be a rotation guy if you're looking for a lefty to sneak into the rotation if he elevates. I mentioned Zac Cowan and Gavin Guidry. Now remember, Cowan came in from Wofford and a year ago made 22 appearances for the Tigers and was just awesome out of the bullpen for the bulk of the season. Of his 22 starts, of his 22 appearances, there was only 2 starts. He made 6 saves. Now, he was a 52 innings pitched. He was a guy that was so good for you out of the back of the bullpen, faltered a little bit late, but that couldn't undo how great he was throughout the season. A 2.94 ERA, 60 strikeouts. Again, a guy that was so consistent, just 12 walks. Cowan is a guy that if you find yourself in need of a consistent strike thrower in the rotation, Zac Cowan can do it. He was that. He was the Friday night guy at Wofford, but he proved to be so valuable as an innings eater out of the bullpen. Now, Gavin Guidry, I'm told that this is the best he's looked in his career. He's back off of the back surgery. Obviously didn't play a season ago, didn't pitch a season ago for the Tigers, and could build up some endurance and get back to being a starter who can extend. We saw him as a freshman, of course, as a closer, but as I'm told, he's been best so far in short stints, and that makes sense. He's got to build up stamina and arm endurance as well if they're not pitching for an entire season. But Zac Cowan, Gavin Guidry, of course, clearly are going to factor in to big roles in this bullpen. The new name that you need to know is Santiago Garcia. So Santiago Garcia, one scout told me, again, this is he's a lefty. He's a transfer coming in from Oregon. Now, Garcia is a guy that I was told by a scout said, think Barry Zito curveball, which that's a mouthful. If you're gonna talk about a guy that was a dominant pitcher in the Major League Baseball for the A's back in the early 2000s. But this is a left-handed arm that is going to be a key guy out of the bullpen. 6 foot, 191. By the way, he was the guy who was the high school teammate of Stephen Milam in Las Cruces. So Garcia went to Oregon. Milam, of course, came to LSU. Now they're teammates once again. He was number 38 in the Baseball America Top 100 transfers. D1 had him 48th of the top 50 transfer pitchers. Made 24 relief appearances for Oregon a year ago with a 4.20 ERA. But again, big-time breaking ball and will be a key bullpen arm. The idea of using Garcia, think Griffin Herring. Lefty out of the bullpen that can pitch twice on the weekend. Maybe he gives you an inning on Friday and 3 innings on Sunday. Or, God forbid, but if you need him for 3 innings to extend, like your starter goes 6, maybe he gets you 9 outs on Friday. Maybe he could come back in a key spot and get you 3 outs on a Sunday. So think Griffin Herring when you think Santiago Garcia, reliever from the left side. Maverick Rizzi is going to be fascinating because everyone looks at Maverick Rizzi and there is this consensus that he is going to be awesome. And it's hard not to think that. Now, he made 24 appearances a season ago with a 4.74 ERA, 29 strikeouts, but 19 walks. Again, similar to Cooper Williams and Shea Shores, you're talking about a dude that's 6'10", 6'9", 6'10", that has these long levers that has to unwind and develop that consistency. But Maverick Rizzi throws upper 90s. You're talking about a guy that's going to touch 100 miles an hour. That's an incredible weapon in the back of the bullpen, and that's likely where Rizzi fits, just like Shores did. And again, Shores is going to be a starting pitcher. He is going to be a major league starting pitcher, just like he was a starter at the beginning of his career at LSU. But as it worked, as he was coming back off of Tommy John, it was short stints as he continued to work through it. And I think that's where, as Chase Shores continues to develop that consistency, he'll be a big league starter. But Rizzi, but if it's you have to be a bullpen guy first, we'll see. Or if you can't be a starter, then maybe you become a back of the bullpen guy. But they're going to try to give Maverick Rizzi every opportunity to be a starter, just like they did Chase Shores. I just don't know that it's going to be this year unless someone falters. But Rizzi is obviously one to keep an eye on. The comp is Chase Shores. Two other names that I think are so interesting: Deven Sheerin and Grant Fontenot. Now, Sheerin is a guy that we were so excited about a year ago because Sheerin came to LSU from Mount St. Mary's, and he was a guy who was lightly recruited, went to a small school like Mount St. Mary's, grew into his body, and all of a sudden was throwing 100 miles an hour. Went into the transfer portal, came to LSU as a guy throwing 100. Another guy that, as another tall pitcher. It's amazing, these guys that are upwards of almost 7 feet tall. But Sheerin they have listed at 6'5", 255. It's not as big as the other ones, but you're still talking about 6'5", 255. He throws 100, right? And Sheerin tore his ACL playing basketball before last season, so we didn't get to see him. I'm told he's likely the back of the bullpen guy. So Sheerin, Fontenot are likely going to be your setup and closers. So think 8th, 9th inning with Sheerin and Fontenot. Fontenot is a fascinating story. Started his career at LSU, transferred to Texas, was out of baseball, wanted badly to pitch for LSU, came back, only threw 8 innings a season ago. I'm looking at 5 innings with a 7.20 ERA on the season. But this is a guy that I'm told has really come into his own in his final season of college baseball. He had a very sizable offer in the draft last year to come out and passed on it because he wants to pitch he wants to pitch meaningful innings at LSU. Sheerin, Fontenot, 8-9, Fontenot, Sheerin, however it's going to go, set up, close. Those are going to be your two guys at the back of the bullpen. As far as Fontenot, I had one scout tell me Carter Capps in Miami was a closer in for Miami. Think Carter Capps as a comp for Grant Fontenot. Again, Fontenot's guy's pushing 99 right now. So you can sense my excitement. You're talking about a deep, loaded pitching staff right now with arm talent that Jay hasn't had and very few teams have. The one other guy worth knowing is Marcos Paz. Marcos Paz is a guy that, but for having had Tommy John in high school, would have never showed up on a college campus. Marcos Paz is upper 90s. He's a future star. Maybe he factors in on this team because of the arm talent. Maybe he's just buried because of the depth. But a guy who's 6'2", throws upper 90s. He is going to be another guy worth watching who is going to be a star at LSU and could factor in, again, a guy that, but for Tommy John in high school, would have been a high school signee and would have never showed up on a college campus. But this is going to be a fun one to watch. Okay. That's what you need to know about the pitchers. Those are the arms that you need to know. What about the lineup? So much of it is already set. But I'll tell you what you need to know next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending, and it helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. You will be shocked when you find out, and Rocket Money shows you what you are paying for certain subscriptions that you had completely forgotten about. It will save you money instantly. It's Rocket Money. Let Rocket Money help your financial goals grow faster. You can join today at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Well, you can tell how excited I am about the pitching staff, and Nate Yeskie deserves a ton of credit. There's times where this fan base has criticized Nate Yeskie. Look at what he did last year, developing Cade Anderson, Anthony Einson throughout the years, Chase Shores coming through the course of the season, Casan Evans as a freshman. It's going to be exciting to see. Jay's MO is the offense. He wants to deal with the hitters, and my goodness, he is going to have a ton of options here as well. But as you start the season, so much of it's already known. Now, that's not to say there won't be changes, because there will be. There's always, very seldom do you ever finish the season like you started. I mean, I'll remind you, there was a year where Will Helmers was opening day third baseman at LSU. He finished his career as a pitcher. But he was a pitcher. Anyway, let's start with the outfield, because we know the outfield. Stanfield, Curiel, Brown, that's your outfield. Curiel played center a year ago. I'm sorry. Stanfield played center. Curiel played left. They're going to flop. It's going to be the same thing as what happened last year with Braswell and Milam. We thought Braswell was going to get drafted. Milam was going to move to short. Braswell went undrafted. Milam was moving to short anyway, so Braswell played third. Platoon there with Tanner Reeves. Same thing here with Curiel and Stanfield. Brown's going to be your everyday right fielder. And Jake Brown's a big leaguer. He's a five-tool guy. You've heard me talk about that plenty. Don't need to revisit that. Jay Johnson had great loyalty to a program guy in Josh Pearson, who deserved the right to play. So they platooned out there, lefty-righty. Well, I guess they're both lefties. But Curiel and Stanfield are likely going to flip this year. I'm not saying there won't be instances where Stanfield plays center. There will be. But Curiel likely is going to be your everyday center fielder. Stanfield will play left. The other name to know in the outfield is Daniel Harden. He's from Catholic High, and he is electric. He is an electric runner. He is electric with the bat, and he is a dynamic outfielder, a phenomenal athlete. There is still some swing and miss there. If you're not familiar, Harden was a two-sport guy at Catholic High. He literally played on a team that won the national championship in high school. But Harden was a guy that played football. And so he didn't commit 12 months to baseball. So his baseball recruitment was a little lessened. Went and played JUCO last year, crushed it. Now he's at LSU. He's a guy that's going to find a way to get pinch hit at bats, that's going to pinch run, that will affect this team. You need to know the name Daniel Harden. The infield from left to right, as you work your way around the horn, Caraway's going to play third base, the Oregon State transfer. He's probably going to bat down in the lineup, at least initially, as he adjusts to the velocity that he's going to face in the SEC. But this is a 15-homer guy. Stephen Milam, of course, is going to be your shortstop. The freshman Kloss is going to be interesting because, look, he's not going to take reps from Stephen Milam. And as I understand it, he's not necessarily ready to hit at this level, but the glove is awesome. So maybe an infield defensive replacement. Certainly if there's days where you want to give Milam a day off, or in the midweek, you want to let him take a seat after 6 innings, Kloss will be the backup there at shortstop. Great glove, needs to get used to hitting at this level. First base is going to be Zach York. We know that, the big transfer. And I'm told he's surprisingly good defensively. And the most impressive thing about Zach York, coming in from Grand Canyon, this is a guy with incredible plate discipline. One scout compared him to John Kruk. He has a low swing and miss rate, incredible plate discipline, and a guy that's going to mash double-digit homers, probably 15 homers for LSU in the team. Zach York's going to be your first baseman. And again, surprisingly good defensively. Second base is where you have competition, because Cade Arambidi is your is your catcher. Omar Cerna is the backup catcher. Eddie Yaman is there as well. Cerna is going to be really good. He's had trouble adjusting to catching this level of pitching. So you need Arambidi to stay healthy this year and develop some depth there at the catcher spot. But second base is where there's a competition. Tanner Reeves, Braden Simpson, Seth Dardar are going to be the three vying for that job. Reeves and Dardar are lefties. Simpson's a righty. What likely is going to happen here is you're going to have two guys platoon at second base, lefty-righty. So Simpson will platoon there in either Reeves or Dardar. It'll be interesting because Reeves, a little better athlete. Dardar, probably a better glove. Dardar had a really bad, he's the Kansas State transfer from the North Shore, had a really bad fall. But you can come along. Maybe he's a gamer. We'll see how that goes. Whichever of those guys doesn't end up part of the platoon, most likely ends up part of a platoon at DH with Mason Braun, the freshman, who they are very high on Braun. This is a guy that's going to go, and if he's an everyday player, will probably hit around 7 to 10 home runs for you on this team, which is why it's one of the most interesting parts of this conversation. You may not have the Jared Jones that hits 22, but Curiel and Brown are going to be double-digit homer guys. You know, with Caraway and York, they're both probably going to be 15 homer guys. When you combine in aggregate your guys that play second base, they'll probably be double-digit homer guys. Milam will hit a dozen homers. Your DHs will combine to hit 10 to 12 homers. So when you think about this team offensively, you may not have the one guy like Jones that hits 22, 25 homers, but you're going to have 7, 8, 9 guys potentially, especially if you aggregate the second base and DH that hit double digits. So you're going to have power up and down this lineup. X factors: Brown, Aaron Beatty, Fontenot, Sheerin, Paz. Brown could become an All-American. Aaron Beatty, you got to keep healthy. We talked about Fontenot and Sheerin at the back of the bullpen and a freshman like Paz. Bottom line is, y'all, this team is Jay's most talented team. And it would be a fool's errand to doubt Jay Johnson because of what we've already seen him do in his time at LSU. And he will have a loaded gun as he goes for his third World Series title in 4 years. And we are going to be here every step of the way on Locked on LSU. So subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. We will go deeper dive as we get closer to opening day here on Locked on LSU. It is your team every day.